Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 30. Audio source: WuShoWorldAudiobook.com. Poking the Ghost King. Crown Prince seeks truth. Back still facing San Lang, Xie Lian said. The Crimson Rain sought flower. Your Royal Highness the Crown Prince, San Lang replied. Xie Lian finally turned around with a grin. That's the first time I've heard you address me like that. The red-clothed boy sat on the mat and adjusted his legs. How does it feel? Xie Lian thought about it, but decided not to ask. How come you stopped calling me Gerger? And said instead, it's alright, not too bad. He continued, that night at Mount Yujun, the groom who took me away was you, right? Seeing Watching smirk, Xie Lian realized his words may have meant something else, and corrected himself in a serious tone. I meant, the groom in disguise who led me away was you, right? I wasn't in disguise, Watching replied. If they must go into the details, Watching wasn't wrong. The young man at the time never said he was the groom. He only stopped in front of the palanquin and extended his hand. It was Xie Lian who went with him willingly. Fine. Then, why did you appear then? This question only has two answers, Watching said. First, I came especially for your Royal Highness. Second, I was passing by and was free. Which do you think is more believable? Xie Lian counted the number of days Watching had spent with him, and replied earnestly. Which is more believable I can't say, but you really do seem to have a lot of free time. With his left arm holding his right elbow and his right hand propping his chin, Xie Lian gave Watching a once-over and nodded. You're quite different than what the rumors say. Watching changed his sitting position but still with a hand propping up his cheek, watched Xie Lian and said, Oh, and how did you find out I'm me? The images of that umbrella dripping with blood, that gentle clinking silver chain, and that cold silver vambrace filled Xie Lian's mind and thought, it's not like you are trying very hard at hiding yourself. But when words dropped from his lips, they became something else. He said in a serious voice, you're dressed all in red, knowledgeable of everything, capable of everything, and knew no fear. Even after all the probing you gave nothing away, so you must be a supreme, or something greater. Other than that Crimson Rain sought flower, that even all in heaven fears, there doesn't seem to be any other candidates. Watching laughed. Shall I take those words as a compliment? Can't you tell they're compliments? Xie Lian thought. Sparing so many words, how come your Royal Highness doesn't question my motives for coming close to you? Watching asked. If you don't want to say anything, if I ask, would you tell? You can always boot me out. Xie Lian laughed. You're so powerful. If I booted you out now, wouldn't you just change skin and come back if you really wanted to do something? The two were staring at each other grinning when just then, a small knocking noise broke the temporary silence in the shrine. They looked to where the sound came from and there wasn't anyone, only that small, black clay pot rolling on the ground. It was the same pot Ban Yu was tucked in. Xie Lian had placed it next to the mat, but somehow it had tipped itself over and rolled to the door. Blocked by the wooden door built by Watching, it started hitting the door by rolling to it repeatedly. Xie Lian was worried it might break itself, so he opened the door, and the little clay pot rolled itself to the grass field outside. Xie Lian followed behind it, and saw that once the little clay pot made it to the grass field, it stood itself up. Even if it was only a pot, it gave the illusion that it was gazing at the night sky. Watching also emerged from the shrine, and Xie Lian called out to the pot. Ban Yu, are you awake? Good thing when they returned from the Gobi Desert it was already deep into the night, otherwise if anyone should see Xie Lian ask how a pot was doing they would probably throw a fit. A moment later, the sulky voice of a young girl came from the pot. General Hua. Xie Lian sat down next to it and soothed. Ban Yu, have you come out to stargaze? Why don't you come out? Watching was leaning against a tree next to them and said, she only just left the Ban Yu ruins. Probably best if she stays in there for a while longer. Xie Lian thought that advice was sound. After all, Banyu had been stuck in Banyu for 200 years. To suddenly change pace might be hard to adjust to. Then you best stay in there and heal. This is where I cultivate. You don't have to worry about anything. Don't think about those soldiers and that general anymore. The pot shook twice as if trying to say something. After a pause, Xie Lian felt he still need to fill her in on what had went down, and chewed on his words. Banyu, it actually wasn't that your snakes didn't listen to you anymore. Little General Pei secretly learned your snake controlling technique. All those people weren't hurt by your snakes. General Hua, I couldn't move at the time, but I heard everything, Banyu said gloomily. Xie Lian stopped. So Pei Su only sealed Banyu's movement, but not her mind. Just as well. After some thought, Xie Lian continued. Maybe little General Pei did so because he couldn't bear to watch the Banyu soldiers suffer and wanted to give them relief, but unfortunately employed the wrong method. The clay pot rattled and said, General Hua, what will happen to Pei Su Ge? Xie Lian crossed his arms in his sleeves. I don't know, but mistakes will always be punished. Another moment of silence, and the pot shook twice, and Xie Lian finally understood that it was nodding in agreement. Although Kamo always cursed at him, Pei Su Ge is actually not a bad person, Banyu said. Is that right? Yes. Banyu had always been an introverted child and suffered bullying from children of her own age. She was only on good terms with a few Midlands children. That Pei Su would invade a country with only a troop of 2,000, he was probably not well received in the army either. The two of them were aloof, cool, and gloomy, so they must have shared many similar pasts. Xie Lian didn't know what else to say. Oh, that's right, Banyu. The name Hua Xie is fake, and I haven't been a general for a long time. You don't have to keep calling me General Hua, Xie Lian said after a pause. Then how should I address you? Banyu asked. That was actually a good question. If Banyu also called him Your Highness seriously, it'd feel weird. Xie Lian didn't really care about his address either, he just wanted to change the subject. That's up to you. I suppose it's okay if you keep calling me General Hua. Only, there's another one here named Hua, so that might cause some confusion. But then he thought, Hua Xie was a fake name he took from the first word of the title, Flower-Crowned Martial God, so Hua Cheng may very well be a fake name too? That they both coincidentally picked the same surname was rather amusing. I'm sorry, General Hua, Banyu said again. Xie Lian turned back to look at her and said woefully, Banyu, why are you always apologizing to me? Did he really look that sorry to people? From within the pot, Banyu stated, I want to save the world. Xie Lian. General Hua, you said that once, Banyu said. Xie Lian. He called out urgently. Wait. Hearing him yell, Banyu froze. What? Xie Lian took a peek at Hua Cheng, who was still leaning against the tree with his arms crossed, and said in a low voice, Did I really say that? Those words were his favorite saying when he was only 10-something years old. In the many hundreds of years thereafter, he shouldn't have uttered them at all. He couldn't believe it, but Banyu was firm. General, those were your words. Xie Lian was still struggling. I don't think so, Banyu told him seriously. You did say them. There was once, you asked us all what we wanted to do when we're older. Everyone answered, and after you also said, my dream was to save the world. The common people. Single quote. So that was it. Xie Lian used his hand to cover his entire forehead. Banyu, why would you remember so clearly something so randomly said? Banyu was confused. Random. But General Hua, I had thought those words were said very earnestly. Xie Lian raised his head to gaze at the night sky, feeling helpless. Really? Maybe. I don't remember whatever else I might have said. You also said, do what you think is right. Banyu told him. What? Nonsense. Why did I keep saying those kinds of things? I'm nothing like that at all. Am I? Xie Lian thought. but I don't know what's right anymore, Ban Yu said. Xie Lian froze. Ban Yu's sulky voice buzzed from the pot. I thought I was doing the right thing, but in the end, it was me who opened the gates that let in the enemy who slaughtered my people. My country's gone. But if I didn't open the gates, the Ban Yu people would terrorize the Midlands and hurt more people. General Hua was good to me, and when I wandered the streets in the Midlands, there were many kind folks who would feed me. Bakamo was good to me too, and all the soldiers obeyed my command. When I returned to Ban Yu, I really wanted to do well as the head priestess. But, not only did I open the gates, I killed them, and refused them human flesh. If they didn't feed on human flesh they'd suffer, and I couldn't relieve them of that suffering. She rambled on and said a lot of things, sounding more and more flustered. It's like no matter what I did, the result was going to be bad. General Hua, I know I didn't do things right, but can you tell me, where did I go wrong? Hearing her question, Xie Lian rubbed the back of his neck and said slowly, I'm sorry, Ban Yu. The answer to that question, I had not known it back then, and now. I don't think I know the answer now either. Ban Yu said dejectedly. General Hua, it feels like the past 200 years, I've no idea what I've been doing. Xie Lian became more depressed. Doesn't that mean I've lived 800 years for nothing? Xie Lian left Ban Yu the little demon in the pot to stargaze alone to calm down, and went back inside Pu Qi Shrine with Hua Cheng. After closing the door, Hua Cheng stated, Pei Su hates the Ban Yu. Why would he do what he did? Because he felt sorry about the soldiers suffering. Xie Lian sighed. It's all just conjecture. It's better if Ban Yu hears more positive words. After some thought, Xie Lian shook his head. If Pei Su really wanted to release Ban Yu from the ruins, he could have chosen to clean out the Ban Yu Pass instead of choosing to feed the soldiers with human flesh. He's got a lot of nerve. He couldn't, Hua Cheng said. To cleanse, he must go through the heavenly court. So? Xie Lian asked. Hua Cheng explained leisurely. It's not ideal. The heavenly court records precisely where each official goes and does. If the heavens was to send officials, then they must thoroughly clean out the Ban Yu Pass, including the little girl Ban Yu. Of course Pei Su would rather deal with this himself, and to him, it's only feeding some humans to hungry ghosts when he's got the time. He snorted. To an ascended god, a mortal life is naturally insignificant like ants. Xie Lian didn't comment on the last part, and only said, he could very well send his clone to deal with those Ban Yu soldiers. Clones don't have the same amount of power, Hua Cheng said. You saw how Pei Su's clone Zhao is. He couldn't take care of so many Ban Yu soldiers, and could only die in their hands to temporarily relieve a wave of hatred. Xie Lian glanced at him, and recalled that when San Lang jumped into the sinner's pit, he wiped out all the Ban Yu soldiers in a flash. He turned to him and said, your clone is pretty powerful. Hua Cheng raised his brows. Of course. But I'm the real thing. Xie Lian stopped thinking about everything else, and looked at him surprised. Eh? This is your true form. 100% authentic, Hua Cheng said. If anything must be blamed, it would have to be how Hua Cheng looked, as if he's welcoming Xie Lian to test it at himself, and without thinking, Xie Lian raised a finger and poked Hua Cheng's face. After poking, Xie Lian came to in shock and yelped, oh no! In his head, he was only curious to see what a Supreme Ghost King's fake skin would feel like, but apparently his body moved faster than his mind and poked him. What a disgrace. To have someone suddenly poke him. Hua Cheng looked somewhat shocked too, but he was always calm and collected, so his expression cleared instantly. He didn't say anything, but his raised brows went even higher, as if waiting for Xie Lian to explain, and the laughter in his eyes remained. Xie Lian couldn't explain it himself. He looked at his own finger, hid it away, and casually said, not bad, not bad. Hua Cheng finally burst out laughing, and crossed his arms with his head tilted. What do you think about this fake skin? It's really well made, Xie Lian said sincerely. But But what? Hua Cheng asked. Xie Lian stared at his face and studied it for a moment. Then finally, but can I see your real face? If Hua Cheng had said fake skin, then that meant even if this body before him was the real one, the face was not. The look of this young man was not Hua Cheng's real appearance. This time, Hua Cheng didn't respond immediately and dropped his arms. Maybe it was all in Xie Lian's head, but Hua Cheng's eyes darkened slightly, and his heart tightened. End chapter.